Hello, and welcome to the Profitable Fiction Author Podcast, a place where we discuss data driven book marketing that works. This is our first episode, and I'd love to introduce the team. I'm here live with JD Caron and Julie Titterington. JD, Julie, can you introduce yourselves?
Yeah, JD, the owner of Weekend Publisher, live in Canada. And, I'm excited for this first podcast. It'll be a lot of sort of get to know us a little bit, sort of what to expect with this podcast. And I'm excited to get into it. Yeah, Julie.
Yeah, hi, I'm Julie Titterington. I'm in the States, Portland, Oregon, not Maine. I'm a successful indie author, and I sort of, at this moment, live, breathe, eat, sleep marketing. So that's what my fingers are in all day.
Are you more into the marketing or the writing, you think?
It's like
Is
an
it just
even
the marketing?
split at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get more into it, but yeah, interesting.
Thanks for sharing. Really nice to hear about the two of you. Between both of you, what unique strengths or perspectives do you think that you bring to the table? JD?
Well, I know Julie had a lot of thoughts on this.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts. No, I mean, I think my background and JD's background are pretty different. So, we have sort of, I don't know if opposite strengths is the right word, but we definitely have different sort of professional backgrounds. So I was an editor for most of my career, and most recently, I spent 10 years as the editor-in-chief of a website that reviewed small business software and services. So managing a team of writers and, really into the editing aspect of content and content marketing. A lot of search engine optimization stuff. So a type of marketing that isn't necessarily transfer well over to book marketing. So, it is a bit of a learning curve when you're starting to learn. But I'd say, I've got a lot of people skills and a lot of just general literary editorial experience that I'm bringing to the table. And then I'm boots on the ground too, with several series that I'm actively marketing, and I continue to write books. So I'm sort of living the indie author life as well as marketing.
Sounds like you're wearing a lot of hats, Julie.
It's a lot of hats.
Yeah, Julie, I'll get into sort of my background and unique strengths. One of my strengths, because you know how you do like those strengths finders. You do like the big quiz and so on, right? And I was actually just looking through. I actually even still have it like on my desktop. And I think one of my strengths, in terms of the top 5, and this might sound bragging, but in a way, but it's judgment, perspective, honesty, creativity, and love. Now the love one, I think in the top 5 might be a little off for me, but the judgment and the perspective, I think is definitely there. Even before I created Weekend Publisher, I used to write resumes for people. And the biggest thing that I found, and the most trending thing I found with the resumes, is that people don't give themselves enough credit, right? And it might not necessarily be the hard skills, but a lot of the soft skills, like especially with SEO, like looking at numbers, having the patience to track things over time. Because with search engine optimization, which is kind of becoming a thing of a past, especially with Google and their AI overviews, which we'll get more into in other episodes talking about AI. But those are a lot of like maybe not necessarily 100% transferable, but there's a lot of like really good skills in there, and you've been a massive benefit to bring it onto the team just from those skills. Yeah, in terms of the question of sort of unique strengths or perspectives, most of my background is in military and emergency services. So I joined the military when I was 17. I joke around and I say, hey, I didn't even go to like my high school prom because I went away to boot camp, right? So, a number of years. So I just did 5 years in the reserve. So it was part-time while I went to college. And then I went full-time military for 5 years. And then I became a 911 ambulance dispatcher. So in terms of relevance to book marketing, I would say an initial thought it would be like completely irrelevant, right? But what you learn is, when I was writing resumes for people, it was primarily for people going into emergency services, right? And people who played pro level sports were really, really attracted to emergency services. And you're like, why are they like pro level sports? Because you hear about those athletes that, are making $1 million a year, but like the majority of the athletes are making like maybe 80,000 a year, and then they play for 5 years pro, and then they have to keep working, right? And it's not, you can't really use the skills like, yeah, you could shoot a puck well, okay, great, what is that great
Yeah.
for, right? But it's that they have soft skills in spades, right? Like the teamwork and the coachability, and they made fantastic emergency service workers. So really, with the experience in the military and emergency services, it really is like, in terms of the soft skills, coming up with systems and only focusing on what actually matters, right? With the 911 ambulance dispatch, you're like, how is that relatable to online marketing? It's like, well, coming up with the systems and having the patience, but also like focusing on just what matters, right? Because with ambulance dispatch, not to overly dramatize it, but as people say, their seconds count, right? You
Right.
need to get people on the phone. You need to get the CPR started right away. So, um, yeah, that really is the core of this marketing, is like, okay, only focus on what actually matters, what actually counts. None of this like, okay, airy fairy stuff that, like, before I talk somebody through CPR, I'm not going to be asking them, what kind of car they drive or something. That's kind of an extreme example, right? But like, just really focusing on what works. And even while I was doing ambulance dispatch, I joke around and say, Weekend Publisher was the 11th business or the 10th business that I started, where all the others were failures. So even while I was doing dispatch, and even in dispatch, I was the local trainer there. I was working on some project or provincial level projects and stuff. And, I was doing really well. Um, yeah, but even during that, I was working on stuff like SEO, and I worked on businesses and tried to build businesses. Most of them were failures because I wasn't focusing on the stuff that I needed to focus on. And once I started doing that, that's when things started changing. So that is the unique perspective.
I love it.
We do have one thing in common, in that I also didn't go to my high school prom, but
Why
I
not?
was just deeply unpopular.
Yeah. Well, I say that, I say it because I went away to boot camp, but yeah, that was it too, man. Like, I was not like, me, 17-year-old me, having a date to go to the prom. Dude, there's like no way.
Yeah, wasn't going to happen for me.
No, for me either.
If it makes any of you feel better, I got dumped at my high school
Oh
prom
my God.
in the middle of dinner. So, true story.
Yeah.
Except
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
took a while to recover.
Yeah.
Uh,
Boot camp was probably more fun than getting dumped.
how would you folks say that your experiences complement each other? You come from vastly different backgrounds.
Yeah, I would say I could probably just answer this for maybe for both of us, or Julie. I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on this as well. But how they complement each other? Gosh, that's a good question. We did have the questions beforehand, so what? Maybe I should have thought of this. So I opened my mouth and nothing came out.
I have something.
But
I have
yes,
something.
go ahead. Yeah.
So, one thing that I often think of, especially when talking to clients, is in terms of our different sort of skill sets and experiences, that JD has this 10,000, 20,000 hours of working with a lot of different kinds of clients, writing a lot of different kinds of content, and with different budgets, and running all kinds of different advertising and marketing campaigns over a fairly long period of time. So he's been able to observe trends and do all that. Whereas I'm newer to the marketing aspect of it, but I'm doing it like with my own books right now. And so my personal investment in making sure the techniques and stuff work is very high. Not that his isn't, but I always tell people I'm the one, boots on the ground. Like, my hands are dirty. I am in this stuff every day for myself, and trying to perfect it in that way. And I'm writing and I'm publishing books and doing all that. And he's got the benefit then just of what is that Malcolm Gladwell thing, the 10,000 hours, where you've seen this before, you sort of know the trends and understand what will work across a variety of authors and genres. And I've got the more sort of specific daily grunt work kind of experience with it right now.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate, actually. Yeah, and the 10,000 hours came from just living and breathing the book marketing for how long have I had this? 7 years now. Just living and breathing it, probably too much. But working on expanding sort of outside of just this, which I do, which we'll get more into. But I would say that's pretty good.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing. What drew you folks into helping authors in the first place?
Yeah, and I get questions about this sometimes too. When I'm on a discovery call with someone, and they're like, take an interest in me, and they're like, hey, what made you get into this? And for me, it was well, I don't know how personal I want to get with this, but I wrote my first book in 2017, and because I've had at that time about 7 years experience of like online marketing and like mostly failing at it, some small wins and then but mostly failing at it, I was in a position where I could cross something off my bucket list, and that was write a book. And I thought of it, and we'll get more into this in this episode, but also subsequent episodes as well. I thought of this because I had the background in marketing. I thought of this, okay, the opposite way that most authors think of it. All right. Most authors think of like, oh, I have a story in my mind that I've always wanted to tell. And that's totally fine too. I think that's cool, especially if it's like bursting out of you, you have to tell it. But in this case, I took it from the end in mind, right? I'm like, okay, what does the market look like, and sort of how saturated is it, and who's going to be my ideal reader? So I knew, because I'm really interested in World War II, I knew that I wanted to be around World War II. And this is a really long answer to your question, but I will get to the point of how I started helping authors or what drew me to it. But yeah, I knew I wanted to do around World War II. My initial thought was like, okay, maybe I'll do it around like a Jewish family, and maybe it's a wealthy family and they were paying off the Germans, but they started running out of money and the pressure started building up. Then they had to escape Germany, and then sort of that whole path there. But I also remembered that, wait, there's a movie coming out around World War II this summer. And that movie was Dunkirk. And I said, you know what? Why don't I just ride off the coattails of this movie? People are going to it's a Christopher Nolan movie, right? Huge director. And it's got some big actors like Harry Styles, who's a dreamboat, and, other people in it, right? So I'm like, why don't I just like ride on the coattails of this movie? So I wrote a book really quickly with a co-author, and it was a novella. And I timed it all to come out with the movie Dunkirk. And it did really, really well. I don't have the exact, but it sold thousands of copies. I think it was over 10,000 copies, like within the first year. When normally books sell on average 250 copies in its lifetime of a book, right? So it did really, really well. And then people started asking me like, hey, what did you do? How did you do this? And it just developed from there. And I just started building it up more and more. So that's what drew me into helping authors. And I actually noticed that I preferred the marketing side than the writing side. And now I have very little time to write, barely any whatsoever. So I just focus purely on the marketing. But I also have written in like mystery, sci-fi as well. But that's what really, really drew me into it.
I love the passion. Thank you both for sharing. So why?
Oh, Julie, yeah, what drew you
what
into
drew
it?
me in?
Yeah.
Perfect storm of life circumstances, I would say. So, as you mentioned earlier, JD, SEO is a dying science. Essentially, we've got Reddit, the rise of Reddit. We have the rise of AI search, organic search is going the way of the dinosaurs, and my company essentially was destroyed by AI and Reddit. So I got laid off, and I had a big severance, and I've been trying to get a series off the ground. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give this 6 months. Like, I got a 6 month severance. I'm going to try to make this work. Found JD's techniques and learned a lot. And I have been able to, make a living doing it now. But I remember that feeling as an indie author starting out of like just making mistake after mistake after mistake. And, I made all of them. My first series still sucks. Like, I can't sell it to save my life. It doesn't matter how successful the other books are. No one wants to buy the first series. And it's because, I wasn't writing to market. I wasn't even telling a story. I just wanted to write a book. So, and that probably comes through in the book that, I didn't really have a plan behind it. But helping other people through that gives me a lot of sort of joy and purpose in, okay, well, let me make sure other indie authors don't fall into the many, many pits that I have fallen into. And there is a way through and a way forward. And, I just firmly believe the indie scene it's already catching up to trad publishing. And I think it's going to overtake it because the profit margins are just so much higher, and the freedom you get from indie publishing compared to traditional publishing is extreme. You really have a lot more control over your manuscript. You have more control over pricing and doing promotions and the advertising. You get to keep most of the profit. So that's my main attraction to this industry.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. Like in terms of just helping other authors, because yeah, there's like it really feels because I tried lots of different businesses, so I know how it feels for authors, right? You're passionate about getting your story out there. You've tried almost everything, and maybe spent a lot of time or a lot of money, and you just feel like kind of crappy, right? Like you've just been sold something that wasn't all that it was meant to be. You've taken advice from blogs or other marketers, and you kind of feel like a little bit duped, or you start thinking, hey, maybe it's me, or maybe it's my book. You just feel overall crappy, right? And if we can help people through that to be like, hey, it's not you, it's just the tactics, right? Or it might not be your book, right? I mean, I can't make any promises, to be completely honest, that's one of my 5 strengths there. And with enough love to tell people, right? With love that like, hey, not every book is going to take off, right? If we had the secret sauce of what every book is going to take off, right? But we what we focus on is given the best possible chance. If there is a way for the book to take off, then we will find it using the most effective and efficient ways, not only tactics, but like strategies, but like, hey, do this, but when you do this, make sure you do it this way. And yeah, I really like seeing the authors being like, okay, I don't have to do that anymore. Oh, I don't have to blog anymore every day. Thank goodness. Like I thought it was me and what I was saying. No, dude, like blogging in 2025 to like sell your book, your fiction book is not going to work. Just stop doing that. Right. So, giving people that relief and that compassion, be like, hey, don't worry about it. Like we all do it. Right. It's all good. We just move forward with it. So I like doing that.
So why now? Why did you folks decide to launch this podcast now?
Well, just going back to the unique perspective, right? I was doing just like what we teach our authors, right? I was doing like standalone YouTube videos, and like scripting them out, and I just didn't really like it. I just didn't feel like it was very authentic. I just wanted you guys to join me as well. I wanted it to be authentic. I want people to see the authentic side of us. And then just being able to split this between podcasts and put it on YouTube and put it on all these different platforms. It really is the best time efficiency way to do it is, hey, we have the questions, we show up and we share what we learned with the authors listening to this. So it really is sort of practicing what we're preaching in time efficiency, and being authentic. So, And I mean, podcasts are like exploding right now, right? And
Mm-hmm.
this very first podcast, I expect 3 people to listen to this. So
That.
that's totally fine. And, as I told you guys too, this first podcast is going to be our worst podcast, right? And that's just the way things go. The first book that we've ever written is going to probably be the worst book that we've ever written, because each time we do it, we're going to get better, and you just need to keep moving forward and just not dwell on, oh, well, this first podcast only got 3 downloads or 3 views, and who cares, right? We're just moving forward, and finding the most time efficient way possible of doing things.
What would you say are the biggest struggles that you see indie authors facing today? And along with that, what can listeners expect if they stick with us? What kind of problems or will we help them solve?
So I was thinking about something you just said, JD, about like, the first one is always the worst one. I call that the indie author's tragedy, because a lot of people, they're real stuck on their first book. It's their baby. Maybe they spent 10 years writing it, and they can't sell it. And they can't move on from that and just accept that, what, the first book I wrote maybe isn't great. Like, that's okay. It's okay that I made something that wasn't perfect. I'm going to keep making stuff. I think the biggest mistake an indie author can make is to give up and to stop writing and to stop putting themselves out there and repeating the process. Now, what I really don't want to see people do is double down on a book that isn't marketable and double down on that series and like, well, maybe if I write 15 books in this series, all of a sudden things will be better. But just having the ability to hold your work with a light hand and be like, what, this is something I made. It's not the only thing I'm going to make. I can make lots of stuff going forward. And it just by definition is going to be better than the first one that I did. So sort of that eternal optimism of you keep going, you keep publishing, you keep writing, you will get better, and not putting all your eggs into one sort of book basket.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I can answer this like in 2 ways too. I can answer this internally and externally from the author. The internal, I tell people it doesn't matter. Like the book itself is extraordinarily secondary. That's like a very small percentage, right? It depends on the author. Like that's what it depends on. Like what you said there. Hey, does the author come up with one book, try a few things, and then throw their hands up in the air and say, hey, I knew this wasn't going to work, right? Or does the author have enough motivation or grit, right, to be like, okay, I know that there's a way, like an ant, right? Like if the path is blocked, they're just going to like try and find another way. And that doesn't mean spending a ton of money, right? It might mean just listening to these podcasts and see who resonate with the most, and maybe working with them or just picking up tips here or there. But yeah, the biggest thing is the mindset, of like, okay, what is this telling me? And instead of saying, oh, I knew this wasn't going to work, let's give up, really asking themselves, what is this telling me, and what can I learn from this? So that's one mindset, and really, the authors that we see, I worked with over 350 authors at this point, and the authors that 100% that do the best, they see it as a process, right? They don't treat their one book as a lottery ticket, right? So hey, I got this one book, and it's the best story that's ever been told, and I'm probably going to retire in a month. Like you're just setting yourself up to fail, right? That's the wrong kind of expectations. So they just have the right type of expectations and know that's a process. And I wish I could sit here and tell people that, hey, off of one book, it will be a lottery ticket, and you will like start counting your millions, and I wish I could tell people that. I really, really wish I could. But I just haven't seen the data on that. So that's one. And then more tactically, where I see them struggle most today, and what they could expect when they stick with us, is really understanding who their book is for. That is where I see people really, really struggle with. And now, the biggest thing is like, okay, this book is for mystery readers. I'm going to double down on that in terms of the cover, the blurb, the look inside, the way I promote the book. Really send that expectation of like, okay, these are going to be the exact readers for me. Now, a lot of people struggle with this because they're like, well, it has romance in it as well, and that's fine. But like, we just need to pick a lane. Is it a mystery romance? And that's totally fine too. And we can promote it as such. I like to use the example of Rambo. Rambo has some romance in it as well, right? I would not call Rambo a romance, right? It is 100% like an action flick, right? Just pure action, maybe adventure too, um, but I wouldn't say it's a romance. Most stories have romance in them, right? Almost every story has some element of romance. It doesn't mean that we need, just because romance sells well, that we need to double down on the romance where somebody starts reading it, they're not going to read it all the way through, or maybe they'll just give a bad review or something. So really send the doubling down on who the reader is, whether the book is written already or we're about to start a book, and doubling down on that and making sure the expectations and our marketing all aligns with that. That is the biggest mistake that I see.
Really good call out there. So what makes your approach different from the flood of advice that authors get online?
Oh, you get me worked up with this, actually. And I get kind of passionate. Just like when I talked about the unique perspective, coming from the background that I did, really what sets us apart is the data driven part of it. A lot of marketers out there, dude, I got a request for someone wanting to work with us. I don't know if I should say this out loud. Okay, I'll just keep it vague, but they're in the marketing space. I'll say that. And they wanted to work with us, and they're like, I need help. I don't know anything about marketing. And they're in the marketing space. Dude, I just like, I don't want to work with them because they're like, sort of like, there's some people, almost everybody has like imposter syndrome, right?
Yes.
I think this person is imposter syndrome immune, right? They work in the marketing space and they're reaching out like for marketing, say that they don't have anything, right? There's something missing. There's something wrong in their brain, right? And I think, there's a lot of good marketers out there. Certainly, I don't want to bash the entire industry, but I would say there's a far, far higher percentage of bad there, either like using outdated tactics, like people still promoting like, hey, I'll take you on a blog tour. Dude, like maybe that might have worked like 10, 15 years ago. Does it work in 2025? Hell no. And I only promote tactics that I've seen work, and not just guessing that works. Like, oh, if I squint my eyes and if I look super, super long term and maybe people have seen this in passing, that it might lead to some sales. I don't care about that. Like, I want to see the data. Like, how many readers did it lead to? What was the cost per new reader? What is our value per new reader? What is our read through rate? Like, actually using like data and real numbers to be able to track this. Because going off of just feeling and, hey, maybe one day this will take off somehow in some way, that's fair. But like, I want to see the data to support that. So really, when we're mentioning everything we're mentioning, sometimes people say, "Oh, JD, is that what you think?" And I cheekily say, like, it's not what I think; it's what the data says, right? Like, I don't think about anything. I don't think about any of this stuff. I don't make any assumptions. I just see what the data says. What does the data say, and what gives us the cheapest? And those are the two numbers that we're going to be talking about. To answer sort of the other questions there. What listeners can expect to, if they stick with us, is data-driven approach. Like, what is giving us the cheapest cost per new reader? If you're from a business side, cost per acquisition. What brings a reader into our system, brings us into our writing in the most cost and time efficient way possible, and we compare that to the value per new reader. So we are the Profitable Fiction Author Podcast. So we look at And if we're not profitable right away, like what are the numbers telling us that we need to adjust on? So that is what we're going to be getting more and more into. And, bad marketing, and, there must be a cool saying in there, like bad marketing can't make up for bad math, right? Like you have to know the numbers, and that's what we'll be sharing. Like tactics, what's working, what isn't working, based on data, not just I think, or maybe sometime in the long term, this will work. Another example, and I'm sorry to say this, I might piss some people off here, and I know there's a lot of marketers promoting this too, is influencers. Just to give you one example, the data does not support that purchasing an influencer to read and promote your book on their social media platform works. And this is not guessing. This is $10,000 plus in data, right? So, and I know there's a lot of marketers promoting that. Hey, I'll reach out to influencers for you. No, not going to work, dude. And we don't offer that because it doesn't work. Julie, I went off on a tangent there. I don't know if you have anything else to add on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, there's a lot of bad marketing advice out there. Putting your first book up for free, for example, is one I see a lot.
Yeah.
That all the free book promotions, and people get real excited about. They run a free book promotion, and when I was starting out, I ran one, and I got 2,500 downloads in one day, and it was like, okay, my book's like #1 in its category in the free store, and guess how many sales to my next book? 0. Like absolutely none, because people don't value free, and they don't read it, and they're unlikely to buy a book if what they like is free books. So that's one of the most sort of sinister is not the word, but one of the worst pieces of marketing advice that I continue to see people getting is, oh, put your book up for free, draw people in. No, it will never work. It doesn't work. The read-through rate is garbage. You have to value your work. You have to assign it a monetary value, or no one else will. And, there's no end to marketing scams for indie authors. I literally get called every day from people who somehow got my phone number. I had one this week. One of my books is bestseller right now in its category, just because I did a pretty big promo about a month ago. And he said, yeah, I saw that your book is a bestseller, and you know what? It's because I promoted it to my followers last week. And I was like, you gotta be kidding. You're taking credit for it? Like, does this work on people? But, people are out to make a quick buck. And the only way to really not get scammed is to look at the data yourself and understand the data and know the value of what your marketing is doing, because you will otherwise fall prey to people who will be like, oh, I'll tell newspapers about you. So a newspaper can print 1 million articles about you, and nobody buys books from newspaper articles. Or you could be on TV. Okay, you're on TV. No one's going to buy a book, because that's not buying behavior. So sticking with what's actually buying behavior, and not looking at sort of vanity metrics like, oh, I got on an influencer, or I'm on TV, or someone did a press release for me, or I got this award and there was reporters there. It's like that. It's just good. Doesn't sell books.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's well said.
You folks both already kind of touched on this earlier, but point blank, is success more about the writing, the marketing, or the mindset?
Yeah, I tell people, the writing is important, but having a good book is a nice to have, is not a prerequisite for success. And really, what is success, right? And it's different for every author. So a success for most authors, I mean, we are the Profitable Fiction Author podcast. So the success for most authors is getting readers. And then if you press them more, okay, what does getting readers mean to you? It usually means some sort of monetary feedback or reward, quote unquote, as well. Um, so the writing certainly is important. And, you can get into like, okay, having a writing routine. So the writing definitely is important. Like Julie was talking about there, using the exact same tactics, right? One series is performing better over the other series. So that is definitely important. Um, but you also can't get readers. I talk to authors all the time. You can't get readers unless you're actually marketing it, right? Maybe 10 years ago, you could put a book on Amazon and readers will come, but that's just no longer the case. Um, so those two are really, really important. But I would say, 90% of the success is going to be coming from the mindset. And I know it's not a sexy necessarily topic than tactics and so on, but just sticking with it, the stamina of sticking with it and trusting the process and adapting as you learn. And that's what we help people with, not only with this podcast, but also with our coaching program as well. Just, helping people not only with their mindset and the community and all that aspect as well, but also like, okay, this is what to work on. This is how we're going to analyze the data. And this is what you should be working on next, based on what all this data is saying. So between the writing, marketing mindset, it's 100% mindset is the most important, but writing and marketing obviously have their places as well.
Julie, do you have anything?
No, I agree with that. I mean, the mindset is more important than either of them. And I would go so far as to say, then comes marketing. And the writing is third, and people don't want to hear that sometimes. But JD's right. It's possible to be successful with a terrible book. I mean, 50 Shades of Grey, is that a good book? No, it is not. But it was marketed really well. So the mindset of looking at your writing as a business and making business decisions with it, and moving forward through failure, because I mean, that's what entrepreneurs have to do. You fail and you fail and you fail and you fail until you don't. And then you succeed. And if you don't have that sort of tenacity and the grit to move through slow sales and just it feels like the needle isn't moving, then you'll give up and nothing will ever happen. It's a long road, but the system does work, as long as you're willing to, have the grit to stick with it.
Yeah, there's a saying that I like, that I say, and I probably like it is because I say it, but it's success isn't always immediate, but it is inevitable with the right system.
Yes.
Right. So just sticking with it. Some authors have the mindset, not to air my sort of whatever, but like some authors are like, hey, if my one book doesn't work, then I'm just not going to continue with it. Right. And in that case, I would probably say, just don't worry. Just move on. Like move on to another project. Like just, and I kind of feel bad because, the next project will probably be the same thing, right? I am going to try this one thing, and if it doesn't work, I'm just going to move on. And that's very much like the lottery ticket mentality. But yeah, if you are listening to this and if you just have the one book, and if you're like, hey, if this one book doesn't take off, like and create me immediate success, I'm just going to move on. I'd say just move on now. Like just save the money and save the time. And I say it with like pure love, right? I'm just trying to save you time and money. Like that's it. Right. If that's the mentality. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pragmatic.
And yeah. And Julie, what you were saying there in terms of the failure, and that's fair too. And not everything even is a failure. It's just looking at the data and like, and making improvements based off of it. Right. You could like fail and be failing all over the place. Right. But if you don't like take a failure, then look at the data and then readapt based on that, then you'll just keep failing all the time, right? Or maybe you might strike gold somewhere, right? So we teach people and coach people through like, okay, this is how to get like a scorecard with your book, And then if it does fail, then this is how to readapt based on what the data is saying. But we need to give every book the best possible chance of succeeding. And that's what we teach people. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is an iterative process. It really, you build on what you learn.
Yes.
So when you look at all the authors that you've worked with, what would you say separates those who build traction from those who stall?
I think we sort of answered that question quite a bit. Yeah.
Mindset.
Yeah, the
100%.
mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to bring it all back here, if you could give one piece of advice to an author on the right path, what would that be?
Ooh,
That's a good question.
peace.
One piece of advice. Um, I think I know what it is. Just really know what your goal is with the book, right? And just focus on tactics around that. Now, that's a bad piece of advice. That's horrible. Yeah, no, actually, it's quite good. Yeah, you're right. It is. It was actually quite good. Actually, it probably. Yeah. So is one thing. Hey, is it just a bucket list thing and just for fun, and we just want to get a few readers? There's a different way to tackle it versus, hey, I want to be able to write full time and leave my job or supplement my income eventually. There's different ways of tackling it, writing it and marketing it. So really understanding like what your goal is, and I think we touched on it. Hey, if our goal is to be able to supplement our income, to become a career novelist, um, I think we touched on sort of what it takes, right? And it's a mountain. We help you up the mountains. We're your Sherpas. We don't do the heavy lifting, but we're your guides certainly. But without sugarcoating it, once you get to the top, you're going to have this sense of like awesomeness and the view and the clean air and the sense of accomplishment. And, there'll be those steps along the way as well. But, it is a little bit of an uphill as well, but not to sugarcoat it. But if your goal is to be like, hey, I just wanted to get to the base camp here and I just wanted to see what it looks like. And like, don't like, start climbing it. Or you can climb it a little bit and then just know that like, hey, I'm going to start heading back down soon again, right? Before you start using energy and time and resources to continue climbing this.
I love it. Julie.
Oh, I I honestly think the best piece of advice I can give from personal experience is don't fall into a sunk cost fallacy with your books. Um, you give it the best shot you can, you set it up well, you've got a good cover, you've got a good blurb, and you've marketed and you've used all the proven techniques. And if it still just isn't taking off, holding on to that and just refusing to let it go is not going to serve you well. So being able to sort of, like I said, hold your books with open hands and be willing to be like, you know what? I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try a different series. I'm going to try a different tactic, and being willing to let go. And that's where I see a lot of authors struggle is it's their baby, their book, they're telling this story. They need to get this out into the world. It's very important that this one book succeeds. And that's going to cause a lot of heartbreak, I think. And because you don't have one story, you have an infinite number of stories you can tell, and they will always be better than the first one. So keep going. Don't keep throwing good money after bad. In terms of, you want to give your book the best chance to succeed. So if you haven't done all the steps that we know are proven to help books sell, do those on your book. But if that doesn't work, let it go. Let it go and keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good piece of advice. But yeah, just giving it the best possible chance to succeed. And that's what we help with. Yeah, I like it.
Well, thank you both for sharing. I feel like we've got some really great nuggets here, some good tips. I can't wait to see what's in store for episode 2.
Yeah, and we're going to, come up with maybe themes for each episode and then maybe bring on experts as well. Maybe a theme will be just talking about covers or but coming up with some real pieces of advice, that actionable tips that you can take with you.
Thank you.
See ya.